And welcome everybody to the Daily Space Weather. Happy New Year, viewers. First thing we're looking at here is, well, the closest star. This is the colorized magnetogram. I just wanted to show these close-ups. There is an M-class flare in there. Coronal mass ejection warning and solar flare warning continue. There is an Earth-directed coronal mass ejection that just recently occurred, either late last night or early today. And it was from this region up here in the northwest. So here you can see a bunch of activity here, including that M-class flare. This is ionized helium. The likelihood of additional large solar flares and coronal mass ejections remains. So the sun's starting off the new year with an M-class solar flare. Here's a close-up of the southern hemisphere. We do have a new sunspot forming here. It has steadily grown. It is now beta gamma class as well. And here's a close-up of the north, the location of that large flare. Overall, the sun has been dropping in activity. The radio flux is now in the low 100s. Here is the one-year chart of the radio flux. It's that black line. The red line is the sunspot number. And the Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard forecasting a little bit of geomagnetic unrest in the next day, later today, as well as on tomorrow, January 2nd. So that's additional coronal hole wind streams, and we do have a high-speed stream. We'll get to it in a moment. First, taking a look at global seismicity here. A bunch of quakes struck the west coast of the U.S. here, none of large magnitude. A deep quake just struck Afghanistan. That was actually, I think, the largest of the past 24 hours. A 5.2 magnitude. So that was at depth. That would be like a 6 magnitude quake as it happened at 234 kilometers. If that happened at the surface, that would be like a 6 magnitude quake there. And that 5.2 probably did some damage there in Afghanistan. Let's see what volcanoes are erupting. Starting out the list with Sakurajima, 7,000-foot ash plume from Sakurajima. Subanosejima, flight level 050, a 5,000-foot plume of volcanic ash from Subanosejima. Alert level remains at 3 for Semeru, located on the Isle of East Java, Indonesia. About a 6,000-foot ash plume from Semeru. Kilauea has ceased its real estate creation. In other words, lava effusion has ceased from the western vent, but continues at pausing activating cycles at roughly regular intervals from 1 to 3 days. An interesting feature there. A resumption of activity is expected within the next 6 to 12 hours at Kilauea. Hunga Tonga Hunga Hapai. Intermittent eruptions there, no size of the ash plume listed. Samisa Pochnoi, occasional eruptions, that's located in the Aleutian Islands. Fuego, flight level 150, it's a 15,000-foot ash plume as Fuego explodes, that's located in Guatemala. The Colombian volcano, Nevado del Ruiz, exploding, 19,000-foot ash plume from Nevado del Ruiz. Sangay exploding, flight level 190, Revenador exploding, flight level 150, those are both in Ecuador. Sabancaya exploding, 25,000-foot ash plume from Sabancaya over Peru. Please don't pole vault the caldera. Please do support the channel via the Smash team and the links below the video. Perhaps pick out a bike. I can help you do it with my vast experience, so check out the link to that as well. And Happy New Year. Once again, thanks for visiting our replacement to Patreon. I'm just showing you a teaser here. Thanks to our gold and silver and gold paid-up annual subscribers at smashomash.com/smashteam. We've replaced Patreon with something superior. So we put up a whole lot of free posts that are publicly visible without even logging in through the holidays. And now we're back to our normal format. We just launched in October, by the way, folks, so drop by, drop us a line. And we would remind all of our viewers that one of our mottos is Universum Liberate. To quote Rush, if I could wave my magic wand, I'd set everybody free. Universum Liberate, the logo of the Galactic Federation Special Forces. Are you sick of Earth and the galaxy not doing anything to ensure universum liberate? Links to the merch below the video as well as on our homepage. Welcome to the Neo-Renaissance, smAshomash.com. Links right there at the smAsho merch link. You can also find links to the smAsh team on our homepage. It's magnetic like this data. The GOES magnetometers, as measured by the GOES 16 and GOES 17. Let's take a look at the heliospheric current sheet as another coronal hole wind stream arrives. Earth remains in a North Pole current sheet, and I would expect Earth to remain there for the foreseeable future. Here's the line of sight view. That was the top view ecliptic plane field plot, and here's the coronal hole plot. And you can see solar cycle 25 progressing here as this green North Pole-oriented coronal hole migrates toward the south as the solar polar field reversal process progresses. Another coronal hole rotating in over here. Is that a south pole? That is indeed a south pole coronal hole. That's 193 angstroms from the Solar Dynamics Observatory. Likelihood of major flares remains, especially because of sunspot 2916. This is an interesting sunspot down here as well. This should get a name today. That's going to be 2923, I believe. You can see it's at a much higher latitude there. It's farther from the equator than the other sunspots. You can see it forming down here to the south of sunspot 2916. A little bit of umbral migration happening there from sunspot 2916 as well. And most of us, well, many of us believe that it's more likely to produce major flares while at the limb. So here's the X-ray flux over the past 3 days. You can see that M-class flare. The peak flux of that was at 7:30. So almost 24 hours from the last M-class flare. 24 hours and 40 minutes later, a second M-class flare there. The sun's celebrating New Year in spectacular fashion. It slept in and decided to produce a flare at 7:30 or so. It didn't produce any relativistic particles that made it to the GOES 16 and 17. As you can see there in the proton flux, no spikes. Real-time solar wind is elevated as there is a coronal hole wind stream. Here's the density spike. It's pretty small. And here is the velocity spike. Current velocity is at around 540 kilometers per second. Density 10.78 protons per cubic centimeter. Everything else fairly uneventful. There was a brief period of geomagnetic unrest early this morning. So starting out with some geomagnetic activity there. Here's the last 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from space. This geospace magnetosphere movie showing magnetohydrodynamic pressure in the units of nanopascals. You can see some variations there in the incoming solar wind pressure. Showing about 12 Earth radii there in this 4-hour model. We'll show ground magnetic perturbations next. This is what's going on the ground level. The scale here is nanotesla magnetic flux density. Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. Geospace delta B changes to Earth's B field. And we probably saw some aurorae there over places like Iceland, southern Greenland, northeastern Canada. If there's anybody there, they might have seen aurorae. Here's a chart of the solar system. We'll advance this 1 week to give you a forecast. New moon coming. That's where things will be on January 8th. Here's a star chart. And the sun is moving up to cross the galactic plane here on its path across the ecliptic as the world turns. And if you're up before dawn, you may see the moon and Mars rising ahead of the sun. This is Mercury and Venus, I believe. The third brightest object in the sky. So there was a coronal mass ejection. I believe it is Earth-directed, at least some portion of it. A lot of it will miss to the south, but here's the view from stereo A and from the LASCO C3, located at Lagrange point 1. So the right pane is the LASCO C3 at Lagrange 1. The left pane is stereo A at Lagrange 5. We've got some missing data on stereo A, so just stop this for a quick moment. Got about 5 hours of missing data there. And so we're missing some of the telemetry, but if you look at the LASCO C3, you can see some ejecta. So none of that was a far side ejection that I can tell. It all looks like sort of in the Earth vicinity. So some of this is kind of directed out toward stereo A, it looks like, and some is directed toward Earth. But it does look like the majority of this will miss to the southwest. Keep in mind, Earth is moving in this direction as pertaining to this image, and from stereo A's perspective, Earth is off in this direction. So some minor CME ejecta likely directed toward Earth. We can expect to see some models coming out of that. No cosmology segment today. We're taking the day off because, frankly, I'm overworked and underpaid. But check our playlists at youtube.com/smashamash/playlists for a couple hundred cosmology segments. They're quite good. We will show you the astronomy picture of the day to show you how differently sized the moon can be at apod.nasa.gov. These images were all taken from the same location, Calcutta, India. And you can see here the amount of degrees. The moon was the largest at perigee, the closest pass to the moon. So the moon's got some eccentricity in its orbit, and that is why it appears larger or smaller. I would also remind viewers that if you're viewing the moon from the opposite hemisphere, the other side of the equator, the moon will appear upside down in relation to the position you are. In the northern hemisphere, for example, if you go to the south, the moon will look upside down. It's, for some reason, a comment that we get on the regs because we put these videos on YouTube, and people believe a lot of crazy stuff as a result of watching videos on YouTube. Sorry about that. We don't put out any nonsensical stuff on the channel. Again, check the Cosmology Segments playlist. We've got other playlists too, like Do One Thing and so on. Now let's do one thing, get back to the data. Here is the charging hazard environment. No charging hazards. There's the relativistic electrons over the past year. Here's the 3-day chart of the electron flux. And we see it cratered as we do during coronal hole wind streams. No surprises there to our regular viewers. Here's the forecast model. And I think we're going to come in just under this green box, which is the forecast. Tomorrow's yellow diamond. Probably a little below the forecast. Next, your total electron content forecast, showing you where GPS errors are most likely to occur, and some of the chaos has been subsiding here, so a little bit less likelihood of GPS errors in most places where you wouldn't expect them. Most GPS errors happen around the equator at noontime. Let's take a look at the ionosphere, located at 300 kilometers of altitude, where the F layer is. Here's the vibrational frequency there. This will probably look a little more normal now as well, as it's been sort of a little bit anomalous in the past couple of weeks. Here's the anomalygram, showing anomaly in megahertz from the 30-day median. A megahertz is 1 million vibrations per second, folks. Major anomalies here. Look at the low-frequency anomalies around southern South America. And some wild swings there, high-frequency to low-frequency swings. Major low-frequency anomaly there, right over the Drake Passage. Anyway, there's the latest image. That's 14:15 Universal Time. Ionogram, 14:15 Universal Time. Anomalygram, a low-frequency anomaly over South Africa at the moment. And now it's time. Time to do bonus features and chew bubblegum. And I'm all out of bubblegum. The first bonus feature is the El Teide, Spain ground-based solar observatory in 6,562.8 angstroms. All kinds of filaments have caused us to keep our coronal mass ejection warning in place. The likelihood of major flare still in place as well. It's a coronal mass ejection warning and solar flare warning. Continuing on. And we have been wrong. Very rarely over the past year. Only once, actually. And 0 false alarms. Pretty sure nobody else is forecasting coronal mass ejections, probably because they can't. By the way, folks, remember, solar flares not necessary for coronal mass ejections to occur. The GO-16 is great at showing coronal mass ejections. Although ones that are directed exactly toward the Earth don't show up very well, as there is little contrast. But if they leave the limbs, there's a great wide field of view here. Next bonus feature is high-resolution magnetogram and intensitygram. I would direct you to this sunspot down here. This is capable of producing large flares as well. At that totally different latitude, that new one, that's capable of producing significant flares. Don't be surprised to see a C-class flare come out of that. And we could still see more flaring from this. Quite a bit of stuff going on despite slightly lower levels of solar activity. There's that new sunspot. This one's going to get a name also. That's 2922 or 20, I don't remember. But anyway, there is the 171 angstroms view. And we'll close out on that. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists. And may that solar wind be at your back. Opinions expressed in this video, not necessarily the opinions of Smash News Network, least busted. Name and news.